I'm thrilled today to have my guest, Pam Slem, who's also a master coach with Martha Beck. And Pam is a seasoned coach and writer who helps frustrated employees in the cubes or in corporate jobs break out and start their own business. And I love your tagline. It must be on Twitter. Pam's my name, freedom's my game. And it's a great one. And Pam's blog, Escape from Cubicle Nation, is also a book that you published. It's a great, great book. Highly recommended. Because you deeply understand what's going on with the world of work and also startups, I wanted to talk to you today about how the world of work has changed because of this revolution that we're in.
Yes.
Can you talk about what you're seeing and how amazing of a time it is for us to be able to start a business now with the internet?
I really see it. I think the term creative destruction is something that I really resonate with in a very profound time that we've all experienced together. A time that includes a lot of pain and fear and some pretty scary things happening in terms of looking at what we assume to be long-standing established financial structures and corporate structures, and just even looking at the overall work contract that we have, generally. And I really speak for workers of the world. It's not just for the U.S., but I think people that are friends and colleagues that are all across the world are experiencing just a change in everything which we assumed was stable, was the way that things were. And so the side of this that is very difficult, of course, is when we don't all yet have a collective picture about what's coming, it can just feel frightening. And if you look at just the way that the news often talks about the world of work, it always kind of cracks me up. Every June, as college graduates are going out into the world of work, there's this whole slew of articles that come out about how terrible it is to be them and how horrible, and they're going to be sleeping on their parents' couch. And the part I just find fascinating, first of all, is why are they talking to the 20-somethings that I have all throughout my world every day who are doing amazing things? And why are we not talking about it in terms of many new opportunities that are coming up? So I see, while it's painful to go through a process of deconstructing some of these structures, I actually see it as the just continuation of a trend that I've seen since the 80s, when I began to when I was inside corporations and began to see layoffs that went all the way then through the 90s. They became much more prevalent. And yet still, throughout the first 10 years of my consulting business, I would still find people, even after a decade of experiencing layoffs, and even some people that had been through a couple themselves, that were still totally shocked that they might be laid off from a company, that still really had the view, like my grandfather had, which was totally appropriate for his time, which was that you join a company and you're loyal to them and they're loyal to you, and you continue on for a long time. And so it's like I was seeing all these things and kind of noticing the trends. What I saw particularly happening in 2008, when we had the just global meltdown economically, the closest thing I can describe it is having been through the earthquake in San Francisco in 1987. If you've ever lived through an earthquake.
Oh my goodness.
It's so profound when you have a group of people that experiences something very traumatic and life-altering at the same time, which is how it felt for the people in San Francisco. And because all of us as a global community experienced that financial meltdown, to me it felt like something shifted in the consciousness. Something said to everybody, oh my gosh, we're really not in the same world, even though we had been seeing for a couple decades many trends pointing in that direction. So as painful as it is, I know personally, within my own family, we had a lot of, experience with my husband's construction business. I know it's caused such anxiety and real stress for a lot of people in a lot of places. But when we can get through it and begin to view things in a new way, with the rise of the internet, tools that people can use to create businesses, to be sharing their skills and knowledge with clients that don't have to be geographically based, with new kinds of companies happening, with cross-generational projects, where people are beginning to really understand and respect the value of different generations of people.
Oh, I love that.
That's where I think we can really begin to have some new opportunities. And so I actually see it, I know being an optimist and somebody who always looks to find the rainbow in a situation, I'm actually excited for possibilities in the future. And one of the things that I'm trying to build is a framework and an understanding for people to create a new normal, a way of looking at their career path and their work from a perspective that feels empowering, that gives them more options, and doesn't make them feel like they've just lost everything and they're desperately trying to cling to what it used to be like.
I love that. I love your view, and I'm right there with you. And I love this notion of intergenerational sharing. Are you seeing a lot more people flee the cube? What trends are you seeing? Any changes even in the last 2 years? In terms of trends,
I am noticing shifts in the last couple of years. My age range is like early 20s through mid 60s, really.
Fabulous.
I don't have. That's one of the things I love the most about my work is it's not really bound by age.
Yeah.
It's more bound by people who are deciding to do something. So the 20-somethings are just foregoing the entire career path, corporate career path altogether, and then for a lot of folks in their 50s and 60s, they're really looking to create a really significant next chapter where maybe they've always been excited about something new. Or in some cases, not by choice, they ended up being laid off and really are looking at it as an opportunity. So certainly it's been interesting to see. My book came out in 2009, and there definitely was an interest. A lot of people were interested in knowing what they wanted to do in order to start a business, and that definitely has driven interest in people understanding what they want to do. But also a trend which I actually think is a positive one is that people do realize that things don't move as quickly as they did. Like I remember when I started my business in 1996, it was just a hot and happening time in the Bay Area, tons of growth happening. If you have skills and you were talented and a little bit aggressive, you could make things happen. And that still can be the case where people are skilled, whether you're young or a little bit older. You can make things happen, but it's slower. It takes longer to close deals. It takes longer sometimes to get paid. And so people are taking a little bit more of a conservative approach of not, if you've ever seen the movie Jerry Maguire, where the Tom Cruise character takes his goldfish and makes a big speech and leaves without really having a plan. I'm seeing a slowdown of those kinds of things, which I actually think is prudent. People are taking the time to assess, what do I have in place? Can I start what I call my side hustle while still employed, or maybe while doing something else to bring in income? Because it's more important than ever to make sure that truly there is a market for what it is that you have to sell. Not just that theoretically there's a market, but you are able to close a sale with people who you identify as ideal customers. And I have seen people that had a business plan that was exactly perfect, all the data was right, everything looked like it should be a successful business, and they couldn't make it a go. And I've seen people that had nothing, maybe a Post-it note with a couple notes about what to do, and they're raking it in and ending up growing their business and making tons of money. So what I think we should be aware of is, while there can be a situation where you feel very, very suffocated, overwhelmed at the end of your rope when you're in a situation that's really not working for you, hating your job intensely is not a business plan. Is what I said in my book.
I love that.
Sometimes the best thing you can do is to take a step into something else that may give you a little bit more freedom and flexibility in order to work on your longer term business idea. But unless you're really in that state, I call it a loading scale, where if you imagine number 1 on the loading scale is everything is fine, you enjoy your work, it's totally fine. 10 is that you get physically ill when you walk in the door. And for some people, they are in a really toxic environment, or it's really the wrong fit for their work, whether they're in government or academia or corporate or anything. When you're that high on the loading scale, the important thing at first is to get that back down. Get yourself in a situation that's more stable so you can think more clearly and not be desperate to make a leap. If people have been working on their side hustle for a really long time, where they have a good direction, they have growth, they have clients, then it can make sense to quit. But I actually think it's prudent. I get very nervous sometimes if I see folks in my space just quit their job if they really haven't put the things in place in order to make sure that they have a viable business. Who knows? Like, that's what I did. But again, that was 1996. I'm very, very risk tolerant, so it wasn't that big of a deal for me. I wasn't married, I didn't have kids or a mortgage or anything. But not everybody is in that situation. So there's a little bit of a slowdown, but I do see also trend-wise that more people are open to the fact of thinking about working for themselves as an alternative to being an employee.
That's great. Thank you. That's wonderful.